Hello, everyone. This is Patty from the Grounds for Discussion podcast. Welcome back. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Tonight's episode is dedicated to a dear friend of ours, my husband, myself, and my niece, Angelica. And he recently passed away, but he was one of our biggest cheerleaders, one of our biggest fans, one of our biggest supporters. We miss him terribly. And his name is Dr. Michael Mosleth. I know that he would be so excited with this new venture we've taken on, building out a podcast studio inside our shop. And he would be so excited to know that Angelica also has a podcast. So again, this episode is dedicated to Dr. Michael Mosleth, our forever fan, our forever biggest supporter. We will always miss you and be grateful for your friendship. So thank you. All right, on tonight's episode, I do have with me Angelica. She is my niece, as we mentioned in the trailer. And we're going to talk about a medical situation that happened with her January 23rd, 24th? 23rd. And how I remember that is the 23rd is, 23 is one of her favorite numbers. So, what happened on the 23rd kind of began really when you were like 5 years old. Mm-hmm. So, little Miss Angelica would spend a ton of time with me, and I actually had a bedroom in my house for you. And many, many times she'd spend the night. A lot of times her mom worked nights.
It was a Kung Fu Panda room.
Yes, and I had it decked out in the Kung Fu Panda theme. And one night, she's 5, I hear this tiny little voice in the middle of the night, and it says, "Auntie." And I got up. I was right across the hall from her. I got up. I walked into the bedroom, turned on the light quick, and I could see she'd gotten sick. She'd gotten sick overnight, and you had like vomit. And you were so sweet. She said, "I'm sorry, Auntie. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get sick." She was always such a sweet, sweet kid. And I told her not to worry about it. We're going to get you cleaned up. Let's get you in the shower. I got her in the shower, and I told her that I was going to go make her bed, change all the bedding, and then I would be right back. And as soon as I came back into the bathroom and said, "Okay, Angelica, how are you? Are you okay?" She tipped forward from a standing position, flat like a board, and hit her little face. I didn't know what had happened. Many things were going through my mind. Is she seizing? Did she faint? I scooped her up. She was stiff as a board. She was blue, gray. Her lips were ghostly white. And her eyes were rolled in the back of her head. And she looked like she was having a seizure. At that time, we called her mom, who was working overnights, and she came to pick her up. That led then to years, really, of doctoring. You went down to the Minneapolis Clinic of Neurology, the Children's Clinic of Neurology. She followed with cardiology. She'd been inpatient, getting different studies done, trying to figure out why she had that episode. We couldn't figure it out. Nobody could come up with an answer. So that first time that happened, she was discharged from the hospital, and we'll just keep an eye on her. Mm-hmm. And then it happened again at
your house again.
Do you remember what happened?
Yeah,
she was so little. You were only 5.
Mm-hmm. My brothers and I were outside. It was right before kindergarten roundup. So the first day of kindergarten. So it was towards the end of summer. My brothers and I were playing outside, playing tag, and I just remember not feeling too well. I don't think I could breathe very well. I was feeling off. So I sat in between you and my mom, who were sitting on the front steps of your house. And I don't remember anything after sitting there and then waking up in the hospital. But I'm told I sat in between them, and like the first time, I just fall forward. And I was sitting on the second step. So the way I landed, my forehead was on the pavement, my bottom still on the step. And, I'm a jokester, so what does my aunt do? Oh, Angelica, quit playing. And she gives me a little love tap on my bottom. And that caused my forehead and my face to scrape against the concrete, the ground. And I remember waking up in the hospital with scratches all over my face.
My poor little Angelica, I really did think she was joking. Like she said, she's always, playing pranks and having fun. And I thought she was teasing, but you really weren't. So here we are again in the hospital, not knowing what's happening. Holter monitors were placed, which is a medical device that traces your heart rhythm. And nothing was ever captured. And she was diagnosed with vasovagal syncope. So what that is fainting episodes that can happen with a drop in blood pressure, sometimes induced by stressful situations. And that's what we walked away with. Mm-hmm. After a couple of doctor visits, inpatient visits, several studies that were done, that's what we were left with. And
I would faint quite consistently. Church, sports, tennis, basketball, softball. I had quite a few triggers, and I try to stay away from them, such as excessive heat, pain. When I broke or sprained my ankle, I fainted. But yeah, all the doctors were saying it's vasovagal syncope, and you'll grow out of it.
But the thing is life went on, and the first episode, again, remember, was 5 years old. Mm-hmm. Life went on, and you're fainting consistently. And they did say you would grow out of it. And I always would keep, okay, it's been 3 months since she fainted. So Angelica and I are very, very close. When she was born, the first time I was able to see her, she was 6 months old. And that was it for me. I was completely in love with this little baby. And she always was at my side. I'd visit her in Grand Forks. I would bring her shopping with me. She's always been with me. And now here we are, much later in life. She's 24. I'm 55. And now we literally are together all the time. So we've spent a lot of time together. And it's not an understatement to say that we are Sedoops. Close. Very close. So time goes on. You keep fainting. I'm trying to keep track of how long between faints, because you're right. They did say you would grow out of it. Yep. So you could go 3 months, 4 months, and then all of a sudden you'd have a faint. Yep. And then a week later you'd have a faint. And as you started getting older, I noticed that your symptoms kind of started hanging with you all the time. Like, I'm so tired. I don't feel good. I feel like I'm going to throw up. I have a massive headache.
Yeah, that's one thing. When I would wake up from fainting, I was so tired. Like, an exhaustion that, never happened like that after volleyball tournaments, basketball tournaments, long work shifts on the food truck here at the store. I've never felt that type of tired, that exhaustion, besides when I wake up from fainting. And that did stay with me throughout the whole day, into the next few days. Like, I felt so off, fuzzy in the brain, couldn't speak very well for the few days after, couldn't focus or concentrate. Felt very weird the days after, every single time.
So I witnessed many episodes. Again, I was the first one to witness your faint. And then you came to work for us almost from the beginning of us having the store. And I'm gonna back up a little bit. In yesterday's video, we mentioned that on the 23rd of January, we closed the shop. And we own a coffee shop, boutique, and now Angelica has added books to our location here at 612 Broadway. So it is a family affair. We're open 7 days a week. And as we mentioned yesterday in our intro, our trailer, we never close. We're always open. And she's with me a lot. Like, I see her almost more than I see Sean.
Yeah.
So I've seen her faint even here at the store. Mm-hmm. She's fainted at another job you were working at downtown.
Twice, yep.
You fainted. She's fainted in front of customers. And most of the time you can feel it coming on. Is that correct?
All of the time I can feel it coming on. Some episodes I have more time to lower myself to the ground than others. Every single time I fainted, it would start the same as a full body feeling. And it is hard to explain, but I'll try. It's almost like my body, it's kind of like pins and needle everywhere. When your foot falls asleep, imagine that head to toe. And then I can't hear anything. At the same time the full body feeling comes, my hearing goes out. And also at the same time my vision it gets tunnel vision. So it starts getting black on the outer edges and then pin little dot of light, and then it turns all black. And it used to be at that point where I would see multicolored ring circles, but I haven't in the past few fainting episodes. But then I would always, after seeing those pretty circles, I would always dream, very vivid dreams. And when I would wake up, I still would not be able to see. But I could hear whoever was with me. Most of the time I had someone with me, thankfully. Hear them talking to me, Angelica, are you okay? And I cannot speak or move for quite a bit after I faint, so I can never really respond fast enough for people, because it's such a scary thing to see. So they're always, are you okay, are you okay? My body is very stiff when I come to, and it takes a while for me to unclench every muscle, and
you're actually very stiff as the episode lasts. Mm-hmm. And I'll be frank, it sucked watching you go through that. Your eyes were open, your face was a color that it's hard to describe, and I think when we reveal what actually happened,
it makes sense.
Everything
makes sense.
Yep. And you were stiff and rigid as a board, and it almost looked like a seizure. Like you'd torque in mm-hmm. odd position, and when you came to, oftentimes it was a big gasp of air.
I'm told, because of course I've never seen myself faint, but I'm told I stop breathing throughout it. Like I take a big intake of breath before I knock out, and then I start breathing again once I come to. My eyes never close. They either roll back or they're darting back and forth. And then it's kind of when I finally can see, when my vision comes back, it's like I'm underwater for a bit. And that's how my hearing is as well. So it takes a while for me to orientate myself again, from unclenching my body to being able to move. And I believe I kind of twerk myself mm-hmm. in weird mm-hmm. angles because I'm always so sore after. So sore.
And you are super duper stiff. Mm-hmm. So when those episodes would happen, it did take you. And now we know, my God, thank you for allowing her to recover from those episodes. It would knock you out. Mm-hmm. You were so exhausted after there was a few times I would send you up to the office mm-hmm. and just tell you lay on the floor because I could see it. I could see how much it took out of you.
I get very pale, and I could tell with my last couple episodes, like I could, without looking at myself in the mirror, I knew I was pale. My nose and my lips felt very cold because there was no blood flow in them.
Right. So it did seem, probably within the last year, do you think, that the frequency started increasing?
I would say 2 to 3 years, the frequency increased.
And then recently, it seemed like the symptoms and the fainting episodes, I'm not feeling well, I don't feel good, and you actually had an appointment recently. What was that, like the beginning of January?
Yeah, that was January 9th. I had an appointment, unrelated to my fainting issue. But I went into the clinic in town here, and they set me up with the Holter monitor. Again, it wasn't related to my heart issue, but I was there at the clinic, so I decided to just get it done. So I had to wear patches on my chest and my body for 48 hours.
And to back up a little bit, this wasn't the first one of those monitors that you've worn.
No, I've worn so many in my life.
Too many to count from the time she was 5 and had her first episode.
Mm-hmm.
You've worn Holter monitors, which again is an external device that you place anywhere from 24 to 48 hours, and it tracks the heart rhythm. And you also had what's called a Zeo patch.
That was 14 days.
Yep.
And I forget what it was called, but in kindergarten I had something like that. But it was for quite a few months, where I had the sticky patches on my chest and body and a little box clipped to my pants that I was supposed to press anytime I felt something weird, felt like I was going to faint, my heart felt like it skipped a beat. But they never, ever found anything on any of those monitors or Zeo patches, nothing. Never. And the goal was to faint while I had that on,
Mm-hmm.
but without fail, I never fainted with it on.
Now, recently then, the beginning of January, you get another
48-hour
yet
Holter
again,
monitor.
I'm going to stress that again, and we're all kind of like, okay.
It was an inconvenience for me because you can't shower with those on. And I got it on my day off, so at least half a day, okay, don't have to go to work, that's great. But yeah, I didn't expect anything out of getting that put on besides the same thing I've always been told. Well, came back inconclusive, no results to share. You didn't faint with it on you.
So what happened this time when you finally took it off and you had to turn it in?
And
what happened?
It's so funny looking back at everything, because I got it placed on January 9th, so that was a Thursday. And I had a follow-up appointment set for January 14th. So that was 4 days later, not the 2 days, which is funny because once you know everything, it's like, wow, you waited 2 extra days, huh? But I brought it in. My appointment was downstairs. I dropped my Holter monitor off upstairs. I continued my day after my appointment, ran some errands, went home, and I took a nap. And again, this is now January 14th. I get a bunch of calls, and I don't know who the number is, so I ignored them. It ended up being Sanford, my doctor. But at the time, I did not know. I ignored all of those calls, and my mom starts calling me. And usually, if I don't answer, she won't call again unless it's an emergency. And she kept calling me. So I wake up super tired, like always. And I can tell something's wrong. And she's trying to stay calm. And usually when my mom is trying to stay calm when there's something wrong, that makes me more scared. Because it's only an emergency when she's really trying to keep it together. So she's like, hey, Angelica, did you get a call from Sanford? And I said, maybe. I was sleeping and I did get quite a few calls. People keep waking me up. What's going on? And she said, honey, I need you to get ready. We need to leave right now. I am on my way. I guess I don't know what kind of doctor looked at the results from the Holter monitor.
Cardiologist.
A cardiologist looked at your results from the Holter monitor. He said it picked up a 3rd-degree heart block and that you are a high candidate for a pacemaker. And being half asleep and hearing pacemaker, I'm only 23 years old at that time. I'm thinking I'm dreaming. And then at the same time I'm thinking I'm dreaming, I feel like I'm going to faint again. So I lower myself to the ground, the usual
procedure.
Thing I do, the usual thing. And I'm like, Mom, what are you talking about? Thinking she's pulling a prank on me. And she said, honey, we'll talk about it when I get there. Just get your stuff together. It's going to be an overnight stay. Pack a bag, pack a book. I'm almost there. So I'm rushing, getting all my things together. My grandma lives in the same apartment building I live in, just one floor down because we're best friends.
Hey, I thought I was your best friend.
Equal
JK.
best friends. But I get all my stuff together, and my mom and grandma and I, we all get in the car and we head over to St. Cloud Centricare Hospital. The doctor said he was going to send all the info over, go to the emergency room, they'll get you in right away. Gosh, and I suppose I never told you about some of the things I saw in the waiting room.
No.
Yeah, so I was pretty scared the whole trip, and yeah, St. Cloud isn't too far from Alexandria, but in an emergency, and then in that whole situation, it felt like forever away. But we get to the ER, we have to wait a little bit in the waiting room, filled with people. They did another EKG on me in the ER, normal is what they said. But just a few seats down from us, there was actually a gentleman who was overdosing in the waiting room.
Oh, no.
Felt really sad for him. But Mom, Grandma, and I prayed for him, and he got fast care, which was really good. So they brought him in long before me, and I didn't wait in the waiting room at all. That go around, it was very quick there. But they brought me to the back, and the doctor, they actually admitted me right away from the waiting room of the ER to the telemetry floor. What does telemetry mean?
So telemetry is monitoring your heart with leads that takes an electrical tracing of your heart. I think we're all pretty familiar with the standard rhythm strip, what a heart rate looks like. That's what the telemetry unit does. There's people trained to look at the heart rates of patients, and they can tell if there's adverse activity going on in the heart. And you went directly to that unit then. From the ER, you went to the tele unit. Okay.
And they had me there for a couple days, 2 days, under observation. Night 1, I'm told the next morning that my heart paused for 2 to 12 seconds while I was sleeping, which I never felt. But that was the same case.
And that wasn't a faint.
Nope, I was awake. I never felt anything. None of my symptoms that I get before or after fainting. So that was kind of scary to hear that this was happening and I had no knowledge of it, no indicators, nothing. And that is another thing they picked up with the 48 Holter monitor, which is why I got sent there. So they kept me under observation. My doctor, my cardiologist, he didn't like the idea of giving me a pacemaker at my age. It's such a life-altering procedure, and it's not like, oh, it's going to cure my heart and I can take it out in a few years. It's something that I have for the rest of my life. So he wanted to check all the boxes before he went that route. He wanted to make sure my fainting and the 3rd-degree heart block that they saw were the same thing. He wanted to make sure the heart block wasn't a fluke or anything.
So he was suspicious then that your heart block and the pausing was related to your fainting.
He wasn't sure because the Holter monitor picked up the heart block and the pauses, and I never fainted. So
he then suggested you do what?
Yes, it's called, I always get the name wrong, a implanted loop recorder. So that was placed in my upper chest, and that just checks. It's kind of like a Holter monitor, but on the inside. So 24 hours a day for as long as it's in there, and it can be in for years. And he said, hopefully you'll faint within the next month, and we can get this out and see what the next step is. So that was placed, that procedure was done, as well as an EP study, which hurt.
Yes.
Which I didn't think was going to hurt. Compared to everything else that was being done, that hurt quite a bit.
Is that where they go in through the groin? The artery
catheter, the 3 wires all the way up to the heart to check the electrical
conduction system.
Yep. Yeah, so the EP study and the loop recorder procedure was done on my birthday, January 16th, 2025. Yep, I turned 24. So on the, let's see, I was discharged a few days later.
You came home either on a Saturday night, I think.
Yep.
Because then Sunday morning.
So I was discharged the 18th. So 2 days after the loop was put in. Those 2 days were a little rough. It was in a very uncomfortable spot. So no matter how I laid, it was pulling and it hurt. I could not get comfortable. And there was one night where I was sleeping, trying to get comfortable, and I just couldn't. So I sat up in bed and I was checking the incision site. They said to check around for bumps, make sure there's no infection. And I'm always scared of getting an infection. So I was checking around and I could feel the little device in my chest, and that kind of grossed me out. It felt like a little rod about my pinky's length, and I could feel each end. And at that moment, I felt like I was going to either be sick or faint. And I was laying down at the time in my bed, and I did faint, which has never happened while laying down.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came to, my chest was hurting because how I was laying was pulling on the incision site. So I tried to move a little bit to get comfortable, and I fainted again. So just like I've never fainted while laying down, I've never fainted back to back before. It's never been in the same day. Used to never be in the same month even. So That was scary. And it felt different. And I can't explain how that is, but just when I woke up, it felt different than my previous fainting. I felt like I was going to lose control of my bladder too. Because I fainted, woke up, and I knew if I fainted again, I was going to make a mess in my bed. So that was really scary.
That makes me sad.
But that was on a Sunday. No, it was a Saturday, because I had my little birthday celebration with my family the next day. So that happened on a Saturday, and 2 days after the surgery. I didn't call my mom. I didn't do anything because I have fainted so many times before.
About 20 years worth of fainting.
And I just didn't think it was a big deal. All I thought is, yay, they caught it on the loop recorder. Whatever. I'll get a call on Monday. But I talked to her about it the next day. I was feeling fine.
Tired, I'm sure.
Yeah, tired, but just how I usually felt after fainting. Had my little birthday celebration with my family. And the next day was Monday. And around 6:30 in the morning, I get a call from Dr. Doshi's nurse. And I was sleeping. She said, hey, so we caught what happened on whatever day it was. And I told her what happened. And she said, yeah, so your heart did stop for however many minutes. Complete flatline. We need to do the pacemaker. So I call my mom and we do the whole thing again, fill the car with all the stuff we need, our overnight bags. And I think I let you know while we were on our way there. But that was on January 20th. And I did an oopsie. I ate right after the first phone call from the nurse because she didn't say,
don't eat.
Yeah.
And that was
like,
at 6:30.
Fine. So I ate and drank some water. But she called me back right while I'm eating, like I'm chewing. Hey, don't eat or drink anything. So the procedure was pushed back later into the day. So I think around maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, I had a pacemaker put in. That was, I woke up 2 hours later or so, very groggy, of course. I don't remember what kind of anesthesia they give you.
Maybe Versed. Yeah. Maybe. I'm not sure anymore.
It definitely knocked me out. Like, it took a bit for me to wake up. The nurses kept trying to wake me up after the 2 hours because I was sent home 2 hours after the procedure, which I nor my mom wanted, but we were told that's just how it goes for a pacemaker surgery.
I know I was a little bit upset about that because, and I just didn't know what had happened in the procedure room,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like, okay, you just had this procedure, you already had medically induced trauma
Mm-hmm.
to your chest and your heart already because you had the EP study, you had the loop monitor in. It's super duper late. Like, I remember your mom texting at around 9:30 p.m. saying we're headed home now, and I'm like, what? It's 9:30 at night. It's 24 below zero. She had multiple procedures done. She's been under a lot of physical stress,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're sending her home. So then things took a really tough turn.
Yeah, and it was already tough because that loop and EP study was done on the 16th. So just 4 days later, I have a pacemaker put in me. So it was already at that point maybe 2 weeks of barely being able to eat, barely being able to drink, because the whole time I'm in the hospital, I'm on, was it TPO or something, where I couldn't eat or drink. NPO, because of a bunch of different tests and procedures that were being done. So I was really sore and just hurting mentally, physically already. And then here's a pacemaker. 2.5 hours later, because I had to eat a yogurt, they send me home. And that car drive was rough. Every bump, because it's winter, so there's ice in the road, hurt a lot. I was super tired, very groggy because of all the meds they were giving me. But I was in a lot of pain. Not even in the pacemaker site, but it was funny, on the opposite shoulder. And then in the opposite side in my ribs. And then my back hurt a lot since I left the hospital from the initial procedure. So I'm at home. My family's all taking kind of shifts, watching over me. And on January 23rd, my favorite number, 23, I am in my bed, and the previous day, the 22nd, it was a really tough day for me. So that's 2 days after the pacemaker surgery. I was sleeping the whole day, and anytime I was awake, I was crying because I was hurting so bad, taking my medicine or taking my nebulizer machine, which is for asthma. I could not breathe. That was another thing I went home with. I could not breathe, and my neck hurt very, very bad. But my neck hurt ever since my loop, actually. So I wonder if the loop.
I don't know.
But so I was in pain. I just was not feeling good. And I couldn't figure out if it was normal discomfort because of everything that happened to me. It wasn't just pacemaker. It was everything that has happened the past 4 days. And on top of all that, fainting twice back to back, which always makes me feel sick. But I woke up in the middle or early morning on the 23rd, around 2, 3 in the morning, and I could not breathe. And the pain was really bad. But most importantly, I could not breathe. And none of my asthma treatments were working at all. And I've had asthma my whole life, very bad asthma attacks, but it was not the same. Whenever I would inhale, it felt like something was pushing against my chest. And any inhale or exhale, my heart in the middle of my chest would throb and hurt so bad. And I've broken bones. I've fainted to the point I crack my head open, give myself a black eye. I've gotten hurt before, but this pain was nothing that I've ever experienced. I would get my wisdom teeth taken out all over again before that. It was horrible. I could not breathe. So I start messaging my mom, trying to figure out like what to say to her. Like, hey, do I need to go to the ER here? What's happening? I'm not okay. I'm kind of getting scared. But I decided to just call her and tell her my symptoms. So she comes to get me from my apartment, and we go to the emergency room here in town. They do a MRI on my chest. Is that with the dye, right? Mm-hmm. MRI, and then another EKG. And, I don't really understand all the medical terms. And with how I was feeling, I just disassociated and pushed everyone out, trying to focus on breathing because it was so hard. I could only take at a time. And I didn't even want to breathe out because that hurt almost more than trying to breathe in. It really sucked. But they said that it looks like there's fluid around your heart. That could be due to a lead perforation. There's nothing we can do here. We need to send you in an ambulance to St. Cloud. And I remember hearing something about a lead perforation being a very, very rare complication of pacemaker surgery. So they put me in an ambulance. My mom follows closely behind in her car. But in the ambulance, they were giving me a lot of painkillers. A lot of, what was it called? It didn't do anything for me.
Dilaudid?
So many different ones, and none of them were doing anything for my pain. They gave me a lot in the ambulance, so much so that the EMT told me, hey, we're giving you more than is the standard, but you are going to a hospital. They have poison control people there, so you're in good hands. But if you're still in this amount of pain, and he could see it, I need to give you more. I need to make sure I transfer you from point A to point B, and I'll do whatever it takes to do that. So he kept giving me medicine. He kept talking to me throughout. Because of how much meds they were giving me, he didn't want me to fall asleep.
So this EMT, and I'm reading in between the lines here when he said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you from point A to point B. And he's been around the block, he knows medicine. He was saying he's going to do whatever it takes to keep you alive.
Yeah. And at that point, I didn't hear that because I'm in so much pain, but thinking back to everything, yes, that's exactly what he was saying. So he kept me awake. We got there, and I remember being put in a room in the ER. And I was waiting for my mom. It was just during shift change. It was around 5, 6 in the morning. Started with a nurse, got a new nurse like 10 minutes later. New doctor after the first doctor I talked to. So I'm trying to explain everything that has happened from the pacemaker, the loop, the EP study, to fainting, to what I'm feeling now with barely being able to breathe. It hurt so bad to talk. Waiting for my mom. It was a very uncomfortable, scary situation. They continued giving me pain medicine, trying to control that, which it was not doing. But my mom showed up. My uncle and my cousin ended up coming to the hospital. They live in St. Cloud. And then, I don't know who, because I don't think I messaged you, or maybe, no, I didn't. My mom messaged you at some point throughout all of that.
So I get the message that you are being taken by ambulance, and your study came back here at Douglas County that there's fluid, most likely in your heart, building up. So your heart is here, and then we all have a sac around that heart, and you had blood filling in here, which is a very dangerous situation. And she then tells me your cardiac enzymes are elevated, and I almost lost it at that point. Almost.
What does that mean?
So cardiac enzymes, there are enzymes within the heart that should stay in the heart. And I'll say this and maybe we'll leave it here. When an individual has a heart attack, those enzymes then leak into the blood, and those are markers that indicate a heart attack. So what I know is that you've had an EP study, you've had a loop monitor, you've had a pacemaker, your heart is filling with fluid. Why is it filling with fluid? Dear God, please don't let it be that rare complication of a perforation. So Sean and I are at the shop that morning, and he says, I'm not leaving you today. I'm going to stay with you. And I told him, Sean, this is really bad. Like, bad. And I don't cry.
No, this is the thing. I'm tearing up seeing my auntie tear up because in my whole 24 years of life, I've seen her cry twice. And I'm with her almost every day.
Yeah.
So she doesn't cry.
I'm old school. We're very stoic, us old schoolers. And I don't cry easily, but I knew she was in trouble. And I looked at Sean and I said, I can't do this, Sean. I can't do this. And he said, what do you need? Whatever you need, we'll do. And I said, we need to close the store. And we need to go be with her because I don't know if she's going to make it. And at that point, I think he finally realized, like, oh, shoot.
Not only Sean, at that point, I was like really scared because my auntie doesn't close the store for anything. So when my mom said your aunt is on the way, was thinking throughout all the medicine, like, wait, no, the store should be open. What do you mean she's on her way? And she said she's going to close the store, she's going to come here. And I thought, wow, either am I dying? Like, I remember asking her, and too bad she's not here because she started laughing and then crying. No, honey, you're not. But I said, am I dying? Because that's what it would take for Auntie to close. Yeah. So I was so happy she was coming. So happy for many different reasons, but also the fact that she was scared the crap out of me. Yeah.
I've never been that scared in my life. So I'll share this. So this experience has been life-changing for sure. It's cultivated my faith in a way that I didn't know needed to be cultivated. Mm-hmm. When I was 18, my dad and brother were killed in a car accident. Very sudden, of course, very tragic. That event shatters you, but you know what you're dealing with. You know that this is it. This is my new life. I better figure this out. But this instant, when I didn't know what life was going to be, in my heart, in my head, in my soul, I cried out for Jesus. And I learned very quickly to let go, to just surrender to Him. Because that's the only way. You kind of felt like from my perspective, kind of felt like I was going to go crazy. Like, here's my little Angelica. She's potentially going to die here. This can't be it for us. We have so much work to do. We have so much that we're working on together. She's an integral part of our business. This is hers as much as it is mine. This is why I started this business. So many, oh dear God. And when we got to and we put the post out, I do want to say this. We put that post out on January 24th that we were closing the store due to an emergency. And I am so very grateful to our friends, our customers, people that sent messages, that sent prayers, that said they were praying for us, that were checking in, asking how she's doing. There is so much power in prayer. And as I'm learning, so much power in community. So to all of you out there that did pray for us, that did reach out, thank you, thank you, thank you. It made a difference.
I would like to add to that. It surely did make a difference because sitting in the hospital for almost a whole month, it was fine at first. Like, okay, I have a little time off of work. Let's try to look at the bright side. I have so much time to read books, but with everything that was going on, it wasn't just like I had the flu or something. It wasn't easy, but at times, it felt like I was losing some hope. Even with my prayers and everything, having my mom with me the whole time, being able to explain things to me because she has a nursing background. It was so scary, but having the few seconds of distraction from all of that by seeing the kind messages and I'm praying for yous from people, friends, other family members, and then just customers from the store. That was awesome and that was amazing. So thank you.
So when I get to the hospital, then, which I'm very grateful, they allowed all of us to be in the ER bay with you. So wonderful room.
There was 6 people, me in my bed in a room about this size. It was, yeah, a lot of people, and I am thankful to all the nurses and doctors who didn't even bat an eye at it. But
not at
also
all.
it made me scared because is that how serious this is?
Right. So what I will reveal now is my background is also a nurse, and my brother, her uncle, is also a nurse. Not only is her mom, but I am, and her uncle. And my very first job out of college was in a cardiac unit in a hospital, and we took care of patients that had serious complication situations, post heart attack, post cabbage, angiograms, and situations like what Angelica was facing. So I knew all too well that things were in rough shape. So we get to the ER. They take us back to the ER bay, and I see her in her hospital bed, and I flash back to when you were 5 at Douglas County Hospital, and you're this little thing, just teeny tiny, in the bed, and I'm starting, at that point, connecting the dots. Like, holy moly, she's been living with this since she was 5. And at this point, I know that your heart flatline stopped for 20 plus seconds, multiple times. Now we know.
Yeah, because my fainting spells, which I don't know if we should still call fainting because it's not necessarily what it was. It was just me keeling over for a little bit and by the grace of God coming back. But it would last between 30 seconds to a couple minutes. And I could always tell the shorter from the longer ones because the longer ones, it would take longer for me to move my body. Yeah, just recover fully. Yeah.
So
my ultimate diagnosis is no longer vasovagal syncope. It is sick sinus syndrome.
Sick sinus syndrome. So if I'm not botching this, the top part of your heart fires a signal, and that signal is supposed to travel through a cluster of tissue, which then tells the bottom half to do its job. And when we got to the hospital, the EP doc, the electrophysiologist, the heart doctor,
which was not the same one who did the pacemaker, the first pacemaker on the 20th, because he was out of the office, out of the hospital. So it was just the on-call EP.
She was a wonderful lady. She had I'll never forget, she had a very thick Russian accent.
It was German.
Was it German?
Yeah,
I thought
German.
She said she was from Russia. And she looked at Angelica and said, well, first of all, she looked at all of us. And I don't know why she looked at me, maybe because I was sitting right next to you. And she said that...
my mom.
Yeah, probably. She's in a very dangerous situation. If we don't do something quickly, she will die. I'm like, thank you, lady, for being so honest with me, but really you have to say it like that because your rhythm, you were in cardiac tamponade, which you had so much blood in here in between that your heart, which is why you were feeling the crushing pressure, the pain, why you couldn't breathe, because your poor little heart
was being flooded by my own blood
and
nowhere to pump or move.
And she said, this is dire, this is urgent, we need to take her to surgery now. She explained what she was going to do.
The with the blood flooding, is that the effusion, cardiac effusion?
So I think
because I also had pericarditis. There was 2 things.
So when you were here at this hospital, they started seeing the fluid, and that's what they called the pericardial effusion. And the pericarditis is something that you probably still have is the swelling,
inflammation.
the inflammation
Yep.
of the heart, and that'll last a while.
Yeah, I'll have to take medicine to slowly reduce the swelling and inflammation in my heart and chest cavity until the summer. So about
6 months.
Yep, 6 months.
So when they were going to whisk you off to surgery, and they did. I've never seen people move so fast and move a big bed as quickly as they did. The doctor that did the procedure said she was going to insert a chest tube, leave it in because that needed to drain, and if we didn't get that blood drained, game over for you. And then what we found out is, what about your initial pacemaker procedure?
Yeah, the reason why all of that happened is because one of my leads, I have two,
Top and bottom.
it perforated my heart. So the leads I have, the ends of them are kind of like a screw, like a coil. It popped out, or it pushed in, I guess I'm not quite clear, but it ripped my heart. But one of the things that the on-call EP doctor told us that really stuck out to me was in the doctor's notes from my initial pacemaker procedure. My first doctor said that it was a tough procedure. It did not go smoothly. There were 4 failed attempts to place the lead. The 5th one stuck.
Which now we know it didn't.
Yeah, it didn't. But the perforation is what led me to have the symptoms of the not being able to breathe, even the pain in the chest and the ribs too. But she was telling us all of that, which was shocking on top of everything, because we were never told that the first procedure did not go well. Because if we were, I know my mom, she would not have allowed them to send me on my way back home. If she knew that there was some problems, she would have insisted, maybe even demanded on me staying for observation, which is what I would have wanted too, because that all sounds pretty scary. A coil ripping out, not being able to stay, ripping, poking at my heart. I would have loved to stay an extra few nights for observation, but of course that's not what happened. But Dr. Montgomery said the 5th one at some point popped out. And again, that was only 3 days that I had it. And she also said, good thing you're here now, because if you would have waited until, let's say, 7 a.m. to make your drive down here, you would not have made it. She kept making it quite clear that good thing you're here because you would have died, which was so scary to hear. I mean, I heard, Angelica, you could have, or you were about to die so much within 2 weeks. I never thought that would have ever happened at 24 years old.
And now your auntie won't let you forget.
No,
what does
you
she
won't.
Do? You know, I don't mean to make light of it. I don't mean to make a joke of it. It is the reality of the situation.
No, it is such a good reminder. Whenever I'm a little crabby or sad, hey, at least you're alive, which is so true.
And now I give her a hug every day that she comes into the store to work. I give her a hug.
She does, so much so that when I pull away, she's still not ready.
No, I'm not done yet. Get back here and give me more hugs.
Yep.
Yeah, it was very, very scary. I'm so grateful that you're here. And now your recovery.
Yeah. And it was a hard recovery, very hard, because I was put on the cardiac ICU floor after the replacement lead procedure. And you know, when I went to the hospital that day, earlier that morning, around 5 a.m., they asked me what my pain level was at, and I said 10. And I never has said 10 for my pain level for anything. And I've had horrible migraines, like I've felt pain. It was nothing compared to what I was feeling. When I woke up from the second surgery, I'll be very frank and honest, I thought I died. I really thought I died and went to hell, because how I was feeling, I didn't understand how one could feel this much pain. I couldn't open my eyes, I couldn't talk, couldn't breathe. my whole body was on fire. Like, it felt like fiery pain, which added to, wow, I went to hell. And they kept pumping me with pain meds, and it wasn't doing anything. And I told them the only thing I could get out to the doctor after the surgery was, because they asked me, where's the pain level? And I said 15. It was horrible. Few hours later, the pain started to slowly go away. They gave me so much medicine, and it was a bigger room at that point that I was in. And I had my auntie, my Uncle Sean, my Uncle Carlos, my cousin Christopher, my mom, grandma, everybody there. My whole family there. And that was awesome, having them all in one room. It was funny because I would always say, which I'm going to continue, if it's the last thing I do, I will get my family back together all in one room. Because how fun is having every single one of your family members you love so much in one room. And if it had to take my heart going out to do it.
Oh, yeah, so much fun. So, yeah, what a journey.
Yeah.
What an ordeal.
I wasn't discharged until the 30th of January. I finally went home, haven't had to go back since. So I do have a pacemaker at 24 years old. I use it about 9% of the time. So in a 24-hour period, my pacemaker triggers, fires off about 2.5 hours. Not straight, just throughout the day. If my beats per minute go below 50, my pacemaker will bring my heartbeat up. And if it goes above 100, my pacemaker will bring it down.
So now this pacemaker you will live with for the rest of your life in 6 to 8-ish years, 8 to 10 years.
8 to 10 years, they have to go in and replace the battery. I don't know what that surgery looks like. I am not looking forward to it. Hopefully, a lead perforation will never be a thing again for me. It is a complication you can have at any point of having a pacemaker. I just read a story yesterday that someone popped a lead 8 years after surgery. So I'll just have to be very mindful throughout my whole life.
Yes, very careful.
But yeah, it's been good since. I don't know if the pacemaker has done this, but I've noticed since getting out of the hospital with the replacement lead pacemaker, I have had no headaches. I feel like I'm not as tired. And it's funny, but the very first thing I noticed is I felt like I could sing better.
Yes.
I really could.
That's our next podcast episode is we're going to have Angelica on and she's going to sing.
No.
Oh, come on. I don't even know if I've heard you sing.
There's clips on my social media.
Is there? Now I know. I need to go out there. So, ultimately, as we wrap up this episode, how are you feeling? Are you like, holy cow, I just went through this wild ride? Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a sense of direction, passion? Like, so I'll tell you, I personally feel like I know our time is limited on this earth. Mm-hmm. And I've always been, ever since my dad and brother were killed, that did it for me. That changed the trajectory of my whole life. I was going to do everything I could to make sure that they didn't die. They died. Then what? I was going to attempt to be successful, to honor not only that they were my dad and brother, and my dad was such a good dad, I wanted to honor their death, and that in their death, something good came of it. And I think that's how we all picked up the pieces in that way. My brothers, my sister. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think I've been focused because today actually marks 1 month of me getting the replacement pacemaker.
Unreal.
Yeah, I went back to work like 2 weeks ago. But I feel as though I've been focused on the physical recovery, haven't paid much to the mental aspect, but I can recognize that what happened to me would be a lot for anybody. not only for me, but also my family, which was so hard to see. But every day I feel myself getting better and better and better.
Stronger.
Yes. And I thought it in the hospital. I think about it almost every day since. The fact that I fainted over 100 times in the past 24 years, the fact that that could have been it, any of those times, makes me think that I'm here for a reason. I'm here on earth for a reason. What I have been doing with my life, my time with Pages of Ink, just how I choose to live my life. As of recent, the past few years, however, I'm doing the right thing. I'm hopefully stepping my way to completing my mission here on earth. Hopefully that, though, will be in a long time from now.
Right.
But I feel as though it's just a wake-up call, like, hey, you're doing good. Continue doing good. And also it taught me, just because of my age, being young, I'm not invincible. I didn't necessarily... I took my health seriously, but I would be lazy with my fainting issues because my whole life it was kind of by my medical teams just put aside. You'll grow out of it, whatever. But now I know to really be in tune with how I'm feeling and to take care of myself. And I have been spreading that to my family, to my mom and everyone. I just want them to take care of themselves because it doesn't matter your age or if you feel good for one day or every day and one day you're not. It could happen at any point.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, you're so cute. Auntie loves you so much. So thank you guys for joining us on today's episode. We did get a little winded, but we had a lot to talk about, a lot to process, more than I even realized that we needed to work through. Personally, I needed to work through with such an emotional time. It is not an understatement when I say that Angelica and I are very, very close, and I love her with all my heart. I personally don't have my own children, and I know she's my niece, but I've always felt like she's the closest thing that I would have as my own kid, just because we spent so much time together. So I'm very grateful for her, for our journey together, and I'm hoping, and I know that we'll continue to grow, and I'm excited to see where you're going to go now with a renewed sense and a renewed lease on life, what you're going to do. I've seen you. I see you fired up every day with Pages of Ink, your mobile bookstore, your podcast. It's nothing but good things. And we need to use the time that we've been given on this earth by the creator of the universe wisely. And I am listening to this wake-up call. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. And we'll see you on the next episode of Grounds for Discussion, and catch her
on the Pages of Ink podcast, filmed here inside Streetside Studio 7, but you can find the podcast on YouTube.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.